Well, after a very messy 2-hour special, we are given more of what we've been waiting for in a very intriguing premiere. Hey guys, remember the season premiere of Sense8, Season 2, Episode 1, Who Am I? Now, I know that in my last review I did do the review of the sort of Christmas special, sort of season premiere. I don't really know what to call it. Basically was the precursor to this premiere. But first things first, this was the legit premiere. Like, when you talk about what the actual season premiere was, this was the season premiere, and, really, that, special very much did confuse me. I think it was just very messy. This was definitely much closer to what I wanted that premiere to be. It felt like Sense8 again. It felt like we got back into these storylines, and it turned out that a lot of what happened in that episode, at least in this episode, didn't really matter. Like, a lot of it wasn't really referenced, but let's just get into this episode, because I definitely do want to get into it. There's a lot to talk about, definitely, and it looks like we're going in some very interesting directions, so let's just get right into it. So we start off and we see Will. He's asleep, he's drugged out, and he hears a woman calling to him, and he hears what Whispers is hearing as he monitors a captive Sense8, and as the Sense8 wakes up, Will wakes up, and Angelica's then watching from nearby, and meanwhile, the Sense8 walks under Whisper's control. Whispers says that he believes it will help them trust them to Angelica, and they kiss, and the current Angelica tells Will to stop it, obviously because he shouldn't be seeing any of this, and meanwhile, the Sense8 looks at the humans watching him, grabs a knife, and cuts a guard's throat. So we don't really know what this is all about, but it turns out that, Will then wakes up, obviously, from him being in, seeing all these visions and things like that, and Riley wakes up as well, and again, just like the last episode, Riley does not seem to have a lot going on. You know how in Season 2 she had her own individual plot. Now she is a part of Will's plot, and she does contribute a couple things in this episode, but Riley seems like the character that just isn't going to have a lot to do, which I guess makes sense because she was the main character of the first season, and it makes sense to focus on a different character this season. I do understand that, but I mean, she's such a good actress, and I really did love what we got. I really did love what we got out of that actress. In general, I really think Tuppence Middleton is fantastic, and I am a little disappointed to see her delegate her to this, but I thought overall she definitely did do a great job here. So she tells him that he's okay. So Nomi needs to meet with two anthropology professors, claim that they're looking at the branch off point between Homo sapiens and Homo sensorium, and they suggest that the two women talk to Professor Kolovai, who is a geneticist at the University of Chicago who believes in the Homo sensorium. So Lito's then preparing to go to his first movie premiere since the photos went public, and Hernando refused to go, insisting it's the right thing to do, just because, he should try to stay away from it. But Danielle is telling him that he should come, and that he is in fact coming, and Hernando admits that it's what he always wanted, and Lito and Daniela go to get dressed. Hernando has a lot of doubts. Like, he really does not think this is going to go very well, obviously because of what's happened with Lito so far. Obviously, people are not happy that he has come out, and based on, the negative reactions he's gotten, why does this, why should Hernando go for it because of that? I mean, I think definitely what Hernando wanted to do here, I think it made a lot of sense why he didn't want to go, again, because the public really did not have good reception, so what makes him think that they're going to have more of, a more positive reception if he ends up going? It just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. So Capheus is then driving his bus, and I will say, I know I didn't have much of a reaction to the actor in the last episode. That's because he didn't have a lot to do. Here, I really like him. I think he's overall doing a really good job. It's pretty seamless, honestly. Like, if you were to tell me it was a different actor, sure, I believe it, because Capheus does look a bit different. Like, honestly, I think Jayla looks more like Capheus, the Melamine than this Capheus does. But he's got the emotion down well, he's got the character down very well, and I think overall he definitely did do a good job here. But he's driving his bus, he's watching a Van Damme movie, and as he pulls up to the station, he sees an interviewer, Zakia, waiting for him, and then we get to what is by far one of the highlights of the episode. So we see Lito, Hernando, and Daniela. They arrive at the premiere, and they go in arm in arm, and as Lito gets a balloon, a heart balloon from an attendee, he looks at the movie poster, and Jayla then asks Capheus where they find Van Damme. He goes back back on the bus to tell Capheus, and a newswoman, Mariana Lupe, calls out to Lito, and when he comes over, she asks him about the photos, and Capheus introduced himself to Zakia, and this is the kind of stuff that I love in Sense8. I love how we intercut certain things together, and how, what's going on with Lito is very similar to what's going on with Capheus, and Mariana asks Lito immediately if he's a homosexual. That's all she really wants to talk about, and he asks her, why does this really matter? Like, why does me being homosexual really change me as an actor? Because it shouldn't, and I think Lito, he definitely does have a good point there. Like, why does this really matter to her? What is this really gonna change? Sure, he's a homosexual, but despite that, why can't she just separate that? And I think that's something that is a big conversation for really anyone that's involved with this kind of thing. Anyone that's involved with business or something like that. Why do we care so much when they come in as homosexual? I think that's something that they're definitely projecting very well. I've heard a lot of people say the show is very much forcing sexuality down our throat, but this was kind of the opposite. It was kind of more of, why are people so obsessed with a certain actor being homosexual? Like, why do we care so much when they come out? Why is this such a game-changing revelation? And I think Leo did have a point there, and she says it matters to his fans if he's lying to them, which I think is just complete bullshit. But Zakia then asks Capheus why he's called Van Damme, and says she doesn't watch movies where white men save the world, and Capheus insists that they are about courage, and that's really what's the most important thing, is the courage. And Lito tells Mariana that he just gives his fans something from his heart. Mariana persists, asking if he was lying before, and Lito starts to walk away. He just doesn't want to talk about this. He wants to focus more on his fans in the movie, more on positive stuff. She only wants to talk about negativity, and she asks if Hernando's his lover, and says she doesn't recognize him without his clothing, and that's the last straw. He tells her that she doesn't understand, and Zakia then says that Van Damme is about white courage, and Capheus and Lito then switch places mentally. They talk about how movies inspire them, and when Zakia asks who's standing before her, Capheus and the other cluster mates consider who they are and what they've done. This was a very powerful scene. Again, some of the best scenes we got in Season 1 were just of all of these cluster mates working together. And now that they have such a more tighter bond, they can play around with them a lot more. And I thought that was definitely very well done here. They finally say that there's no one else like who they are, and that's neither good nor bad. They are who they are, and that's something I will say for all the Sense8s. They all really do contribute something different. Lito is good at being an actor. Capheus is good at, driving and things like that. Wolfgang's good at being the shit out of someone. Sun's good at kung fu moves. Nomi's good with hacking. Will's good with police stuff. Everyone really does contribute something different. Riley's good with being a DJ. And Lito and Capheus congratulate each other. Lito walks in with Hernando and Danielle, and it was just a very triumphant moment. You could tell this was obviously something that was both very hard for Lito and for Capheus, and for all the cluster mates to come together and really help Lito and Capheus interject what they're supposed to say. I just thought that was very well done, and that's something that was kind of missing from the special. In the special, it was kind of everyone doing their own separate thing, and here, this was definitely more of what I really like seeing. I thought that was definitely very well shown here. So, in Nairobi, Zakia gives her name to Capheus, says that he's pleased to meet her, and in the theater, Lito and the others are watching the movie. Several people get up, and they leave in protest when in the movie, Lito actually kisses the female lead. And again, they're just looking at him so different. They can't seem to separate Lito the actor from Lito the actual human being. And it's complete bullshit that they can do that, but that's kind of what happens nowadays, is that people just can't separate those roles. That's why people that are gay in real life are getting roles in which they are gay, because sometimes it's very hard for someone to separate the actor from the person, and that's kind of what's going on here. They just can't separate Lito from who he really is, and I think it's going to be a very interesting storyline to see where that goes moving forward. So Zakia approaches Capheus and admits that she didn't come to listen, and she admires that he spoke from the heart and invites him to get some dinner, and clearly she is there to ask him out, and Jayla, listening loudly, says that Capheus would. He's obviously very happy for him, and Wolfgang and Felix are then partying in Berlin, and Kala and Rajan are showing Kala's family the new house that they're buying. So Wolfgang and Felix then share a bottle of champagne, and the club owner Sebastian Fuchs comes over, and Wolfgang knows him as the King of the North, and Sebastian then praises Felix's loyalty, gives him the club out of respect for his loyalty to Wolfgang. Obviously, how much Felix has stuck by him after all the shit that they've gone through together. Felix has always been Wolfgang's most trusted ally, and I really did like seeing this. As we know, Wolfgang's trying to move away from that bad crime life, and I think Felix is kind of key to doing that. So Capheus and Zakia then get dinner. They talk about how women have progressed and what is still wrong, and she wonders how what job she has makes a difference. Like, why does it really matter that she's a reporter? And Capheus tells her that courage is getting up every day to see what is still beautiful and how dreams still come true. And that very much applies to a lot of characters in the show. It took courage for Lito to come out. It took courage for Capheus to drive the Van Dam. It took courage for any of them to realize, that they were in the cluster. It took courage for Riley to, get away from Whispers, and it took a lot of courage for Wolfgang and Kala to admit they have feelings for each other. So a lot of these things, the show does have to do with courage, and what Capheus is saying, I think, really does speak for pretty much every character involved. So this was definitely very well done. And again, I like that they gave Toby I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but I like they gave him these long expository scenes, because it really did show us how he can act, especially because, like I said, he was a character who had the least, progression in his storyline going on in the special, and I think it made a lot of sense for them to give him a lot to do here. So, through their link, Will sees Whispers with his wife Elizabeth and his daughter as she rides her horse Neville, and it's important to know in this episode, something that this episode really does capitalize on, is the fact that Whispers did have a whole life, and he is an actual human being. He's not just this, entity. He is a real person. And Riley then writes down what Will sees, and Elizabeth mentions that Whispers is going to Chicago, and she reminds him to take his pills, and Will tells Riley about Chicago. So in her lab, Kala's co-worker asks Kala about the honeymoon, and Riley then checks in with Kala, saying that Will won't eat, and Kala excuses herself to go into the next room, and then channel through Riley checking Will. She increases Will's vitamins, but warns that they can't keep it up much longer, and Nomi then comes in, says she's trying to find a crack into BPO, but they haven't found anything. She's working with Bug, who smashed his computer in a frenzy when he fails again, and Bug admits to Nomi that BPO might be even more paranoid than he is, and he wonders who Nomi is talking to, and Needs tells him that Nomi talks to herself a lot. She's doing a pretty good job of covering up what's actually going on, but meanwhile, Nomi tells Riley that Will has to get them something more concrete, because what they have right now just isn't good enough, and they need more information than what they already have. And again, this is obviously all surrounding Whispers. They want to try to get as much information as possible, and that's what a lot of this episode is focusing on, is the way they're all really coming together to find out information that can take down Whispers. And the other clustermates arrive out to check on Will. Wolfgang tells Riley not to give up on Will because he wouldn't give up on any of them, and I definitely did really like that scene. That's something that I think he has come to know, that he's not going to give up on any of his clustermates, and I definitely did like seeing that here. So Kaja's family then have dinner, and Manendra, I think is how you pronounce her name, says that he's met with the Prime Minister and accepted his offer, and Rajan is very unhappy that his father accepted the offer without consulting them. I mean, he just accepted it. He didn't say anything, it just randomly he accepted, and Sahana insists that she's okay with her husband's decision, so Sanyam offers a toast to Manendra's success, and it was a good scene. I like seeing them as, this couple having dinner, but we know things are obviously very complicated right now for Kala and Rajan, which we didn't see a lot of in this episode, but I thought we did get enough with that storyline, just not as much as we got with the special, which I guess makes sense. But Nomi and Needs to go to the university to hear Kalavi's lecture, and he's talking about communication without words, and he points out how communicating through words has evolutionary advantages, and the Homo sapiens wiped out the other evolutionary offshots, and afterward, they talk with Kolavi, and Nomi asks if he believes in Homo sensorium, and Kolavi says that they inherited empathy from them, and Neitz asks him about one of his students, Matheson, and shows Kolavi a photo, and Kolavi remembers him, but he has no idea how to reach Matheson since he left in the 80s, and as the woman leaves, Neitz suspects that Kolavi had to be lying. I mean, there's definitely more to the story than that. The fact that he doesn't know how to reach him, but he does remember him, is definitely very curious. There's definitely a lot more going on with that than what we think. So Riley then feeds Will Skyer and talks about her father's music, and Will warns her not to go into details in case Whispers is listening, because again, he knows that Whispers came after his father, and if she divulges into any secrets about her family's past, Whispers will come after them. As we can see, Whispers is very intent on kidnapping them, and he will go to extreme measures to do that. So Whispers appears in the merge, asks if Riley realized that she's protecting Will to death, and he says says that the original Will is dead and that he's gone. And Whisper says that he knows Will has been watching. He admits it's been more trying than anticipating, but it's also bringing him closer to finding Cluster. Even though they've tried to keep him away, he's going to find them, and Will tells him that they're closer to finding him, and Will says that he knows he's in a military building in an urban area based on the sound of the soldiers' footsteps outside, and he figures that Whispers has to be in England, and Whisper says that what the BPO does is older than either of them, and it's beyond their control. I mean, they'll never be able to figure it out. Even though Nomi is very good at coding and hacking, there's no way they're going to find him. So everything Will has seen is set up by them. He describes all the clues showing that Will is still in Iceland hiding in church, and Will then jerks back as Riley injects him. Whisper says that soon they'll arrive and Riley will be his. So remember, he's not trying to get to Will, he's trying to get to Riley. And if I remember correctly, it's because Riley is kind of the key to everything. She's the one who will get him to access what he wants, and obviously, he wants to get to Riley, and the reason why she's drugging Will is because Will is the one who keeps seeing Whispers, and if he takes Will, then he can use that against Riley's advantage, and then he can, get Riley, have Riley all to himself. Obviously, he wants Riley, and it makes sense that Riley doesn't have a lot of progression going on because of that. I just hope they do give her more to do, especially because this is so focused on him coming after Riley. And obviously, since he wants to come after Riley, obviously this is going to play, it's still going to play a big role in, what has to do with Will. Obviously, he is coming after Will, but I just hope Riley has a little bit more progression in the story than what she's had so far, because right now, she just hasn't had a lot to do, and I really hope that does change soon. So, once Will's unconscious, Riley goes downstairs. She turns off the recording of Seagulls, and she then goes into Amsterdam, and Soon is then painting with her fellow prisoners, which we don't get a lot with Soon in this episode, probably because we got a lot in the special. We just don't really see a lot of her here, but it's fine what we got. But then we do get a scene with Riley that I was very impressed by. So Riley then finds her father, Gunnar. He's playing at a cafe, wearing sunglasses to try to look inconspicuous, obviously because he is trying to be incognito, and he gives her a bag with supplies, including Skyer, and assures her that he made sure none of it was exported from Iceland, and Gunnar asks if everything is okay, but he isn't convinced when Riley says it is. He knows definitely that everything is not okay. I mean, she just, by the tone of her voice and by the way she says things, there's no way everything is just fine. So she insisted it will work out, and what he brought will help out. And Gunnar warns that there's a lot to talk back home, but he does trust her. And he starts playing again while Riley listens, and it was a really good scene. You can tell that Riley, she's doing what she can to not let her father in, because if she does, he's going to get involved with Whispers. And if she says too much, Whispers will come after her father, and she's doing what she can to ensure that doesn't happen. So this is definitely very smart of Riley to do that. I think it definitely does make sense why Riley was trying to do that. So Nomi and Amanita then go to the home of Helen and Jerry Petrell, who are Sarah's parents. And remember, Sarah is the girl that there was that whole case with Sarah. This is a case that Will's been trying to solve for a very long time. We know that's what all of season 1 was about, and I'm glad to see it still going on, because we did not close that case. We know obviously who the killer is, but we did not close that case. And Will is then with them mentally, and he remembers his father going there after a young Will told him about Sarah. Remember, Sarah was this girl that Will did like, and Helen answers the door, figures that they've seen Sarah, and the woman says they're not the first and invites them in, and over tea, Helen says that Will was the first visitor, and Michael was the detective assigned to the case. So young Will says that Sarah is next to Helen holding her hand, and Jerry doesn't believe it. There's no way that young Will could be seeing Sarah. I mean, it's just absurd. And Will explained that he's seeing a memory, and years later, Will, now as an adult, he comes back after he graduated from the police academy, and he tells Sarah that he became a cop after seeing her. So obviously he has been seeing Sarah for a while, and Helen then asks how Will is, and Nomi admits that he's been better, and when Nomi says that Will is there, Helen tells him that she hopes he finds some peace. She explains that other people came there, including Jonah, and it was very hard on Jerry, and Helen explains that she found it comforting that even lives as short as Sarah's could still somehow live on. So she was very intrigued by the idea, while Jerry was kind of creeped out by it, and I think it's interesting that they both felt very differently here. So Neat shows Helen photos of Angelica, and Helen remembers that she came to talk about Sarah, and she mentions Matheson and knows Whispers as Matheson, and it turns out that's actually Whispers' real name. So Will mutters that Whispers actually murdered Sarah, but Nomi doesn't pass that on. Obviously, probably because this is a mother that is just so deep in grief that to throw that kind of evidence on her, it would just be too much for her to handle. And Whispers was apparently Sarah's tutor in a gifted student program, and to Helen here, Whispers was just a really nice guy. He really did help out Sarah, and, basically she didn't really think much of him. He was just a really kind-hearted soul. And Will has Nomi tell Helen that he's going to get Whispers and all the people hiding behind him, and Nomi merely tells Helen that Will says that he will never give up. He will do whatever he can to make sure this case is solved. And Wolfgang then goes to the zoo. He tells Soon that after his parents fought, his mother used to bring him there and said that he was an optimist, and she admitted to him that eventually she would go back home. And Wolfgang tells her that waiting is harder, and Will then appears unconscious. And then we get to this ending, which this ending was extremely well done. I love the way this scene was handled. Riley finds Will. He's going into convulsions. Riley calls on Kala, and the other cluster mates arrive, and Kala gives Will an injection. He wakes up while still seeing Whispers in a meeting with his superior, and Will tells the startled Whispers to ignore him, and then he and the others look out the window to see where they are. Whispers tries to excuse himself, and Nomi then traces Whispers and the head of the BPO through everything that they can see. And checking the internet, Nomi finally identifies the BPO head as Richard Wilson Chrome, which is Whispers' actual identity. And Will tells Whispers the name. Whispers drops his pills, obviously in shock that Will would remember that, and Chrome complains about Whispers' last breach of protocol, and Whispers says that he's compromised and he has to go, and Will tells him that the cluster is coming for him, which is an awesome start to this, and that is how the episode ends. Really awesome stuff overall, but let's just get this episode and where I think we're going to go for this season. So, wow, I mean, already there's a lot of stuff to unpack within this premiere, but let's first talk about Whispers, because obviously, in Season 1, we were teased about Whispers and really how powerful of a man he is, but he didn't really come to fruition until the end of the season. Now that he's out there and we know who he is, now not only can we see really how powerful he really is, but also how vulnerable he really is, and I love the way the cluster is using that to their advantage. Now they know this information about Whispers, that he did have this other identity, and that he was in fact, Sarah's tutor. There's definitely a lot more to his story that we don't know about, and I'm definitely very interested in getting into that, and that ending was truly awesome when Will tells him, oh, we're coming after you. I mean, I can't wait to see the way that's all going to go down, and something tells me that they're going to get information against Whispers, and they're going to become more powerful than him. I know, obviously, he is more powerful than the cluster right now, but I do think they're going to find a way to become more powerful than him, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how that all does go down, because I think overall that definitely is a very interesting storyline, and I love where the Whisper stuff is head. I think overall it's very interesting, and I love how determined Will is with this case. Like, he's doing what he can to see this through. I mean, this is a case he's been doing basically since he became a police officer. Sarah is the reason why he became a police officer, as we know, and, Diego always thought he was kind of crazy when he talked about her, but we know he's obviously not. He did, in fact, see Sarah. She is definitely there. Obviously, she's dead, but he did see her, and that's because Whispers is the one that murdered her, and I think he's going to get more information, and I think he's going to close this case for good. Even though Will is under a lot of, drug hallucinogens right now, I do think he's going to make sure that this case is closed. Obviously, he can see Helen, she's grieving, and she doesn't really think much of Whispers in a bad way. She thinks him as a really good man who is just, such a kind-hearted soul and really helped out her daughter, when it's the exact opposite. I mean, he's the one that caused her daughter's demise, and I like that Will, he's doing what he can to gather the information against Whispers and, basically finally condemn this guy, because someone's got to do it. I mean, he's basically unstoppable right now, and I like that Will is finally trying to put him down, and I definitely do hope that does work out well for him, but we'll have to see really the way things do go there. And then Nomi, obviously Nomi, she's doing what she can to get information about BPO, and Whispers is telling her, look, it's more powerful than you can really imagine, and We know BPO, I mean, obviously it does want Riley. I don't remember exactly why it wants Riley, but it does want Riley. I believe it's because Whispers is her father, if I'm not mistaken. We know her real father, is in Iceland, obviously Gunnar, and she doesn't want Whispers to come after him, but in many ways, Riley is also Whisper's father, which is just really crazy to think about. So I don't really know how this is all going to go down. I think this is overall very interesting. I can't wait to see the way that all really does go down. Again, if I'm getting information wrong, it's because the show hasn't been on since 2015. I really do need to catch up on reviews for that, remember a lot of the details, because there's a lot of stuff I'm sure that I am leaving out. I apologize for that, guys, just because of how long I've had to wait for this show and things like that. When it comes to what's going on with Lito, though, Lito's storyline is also really interesting right now. The whole thing going on with him and him now coming out, obviously, yes, he did come out, but there is definitely a price he has to pay for that, and it sucks because, I mean, you wish Lito could just come out and that would be the end of it, that everything would be fine and people would just shut the fuck up. But no, people aren't like that. People are very cynical. People want to know details. People are blaming Lito for things, and for some reason they can't separate Lito the actor from Lito the man, and it's ridiculous. It really is stupid that no one can do that, but that's the situation that's going on here, and as long as Lito is an actor, I think this is something he's going to face, for the rest of his life. So we'll really have to see the way that goes down. I think that definitely is going to be very interesting, the way things go, the way that goes down. I think that definitely, like I said, is going to be very interesting. Capheus and Zakia, I really do like their relationship overall. I like that she is there to possibly be a love interest for him, and I'm liking what we're getting of the actor so far. I think he's definitely doing a good job. Melamine was fantastic, but I think this actor's going to be just as good. I think they definitely did see something in him, and I think overall he definitely is doing a very good job on this show, so I'm really liking what we're getting with Capheus here. I think, definitely the actor's doing a really good job. I can't pronounce his last name right now. It's just, his last name's kind of escaping me, but I think he definitely is doing a really good job, and I really do hope that his storyline does pay off, because I'm really liking we're getting there. Like I said, really my only problem with this episode is, one, there was a lot of expository scenes, especially with Capheus. I get it, obviously, because it is a new Capheus, they wanted to show him off, but there was a lot of information given to us in this episode, and some of the characters really didn't have a lot to do. Soon was very much in the background here. She really did not have much to do in terms of her plot. Kala didn't have a lot. Wolfgang didn't really have a lot either. He was in a few scenes here and there. Most of this episode was focused on Will and Whispers, and, Nomi has been there as well, and Lito. Those are really the only characters that had a lot going on, and I'm fine with that. I understand why, but this definitely was a much better episode than what we got in the special. I'm just very happy to see that the show is back. I was very impressed with this premiere overall. I'm definitely going to give this the actual season premiere of Sense8, Season 2, Episode 1, Who Am I, a 4 out of 5 or a B+. So, overall, guys, to review this episode of Sense8, let me know what you guys thought of this episode overall. Left your thoughts in it. Did you like this premiere? Did you like the other premiere better? Did this episode work better as a premiere for you? For me, this worked so much better as a premiere because it wasn't 2 hours long. They were able to do a lot more and actually hold my attention for most of the time. But I am so happy the show is now back and that I can talk to you guys about it again. Again, there might be things that I left out, but I am going to go back and, rewatch some reviews and things like that just to make sure that I have some of the details right, because I don't exactly remember why Riley is so important to Whispers, and that is definitely kind of a detriment to my reviews right now. But either way, guys, let me know what you guys thought of this episode, left your thoughts in it. I am very happy to see the show is back, and I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for tonight's episode of The Leftovers, which obviously I am hyped for. 4 episodes left, guys. It's pretty insane, but 4 episodes left, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.